Do you think there was more? You mentioned that like downtown Harlem, 116th, 115th Street between 7th and 8th Avenue, that was also a spot where hustlers that went out of town would descend on Thursdays to re-up.
No, don't get convoluted. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Those neighborhoods were major selling neighborhoods.
Okay, so that was not the re-up neighborhood.
No. There's no re-up neighborhood.
Was the out-of-town game like it was in the 80s when New York crews would shoot out of town, like you went to, Baltimore?
In the 70s, yes.
Yeah, was that a thing with heroin?
In the 70s,
okay.
They were doing that in the 70s.
Okay, wow. Yeah.
I remember as a kid, older people around me, I knew of the existence of the cities of Baltimore and Boston and Philly, by way Trenton, by way of the older people around me talking about, the work going to these places.
Okay.
That's how I knew they existed. Other than that, I wouldn't have known they
right.
existed. Right. So yeah, that's been happening.
Okay.
That's been happening.
So then who controlled the actual retail street distribution in Harlem still?
Retail street distribution was not controlled by any one particular individual.
Okay.
You had a guy you had Hev on 117th Street between 8th and St. Nick. And he wasn't the only one. You had, at the same time, you had Alan Lloyd at the same time. And these, they're making, just these individuals are bringing, Hev was dealing with Ronnie Bump. Ronnie told me that Hev was bringing him, he was good for a key and a half, 2 keys, a week.
Wow.
By himself.
Just
in one
quarters.
block.
Yeah.
Like millions of dollars. Right. You know what I mean? And it's just one guy, one block, right? Yeah. And then you got 16th Street. And 16th Street is like a longer strip than 15th Street. And I think this has a lot to do with the fact that St. Nicholas cuts across 7th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
So the way it is angled, 17th Street is this long, but 16th Street is this long.
Right. 15th
Street is this long. Like 16th Street is this long from 7th to 8th.
Right.
It's a long ass strip. Yeah. And there's millions of being made on this block. And then my block, 15th Street, as I'm a little kid, they're selling, sometimes 1,000 quarters in a day. And this is one block. You know what I mean?
Describe for me the traffic times. You would walk out, you'd be hanging out on your stoop, or little Cavario would be looking down through the window at the street, and the lines of cars waiting to get served, and how that happened.
So they'd be coming up the block. They're coming coming from 7th Avenue, right? The block goes east to west. So they're coming from 7th Avenue, and there'd be 4 or 5 cars coming up the block. When they get past like mid-block, that's when serving begins. So whether you're walking into the block or whether you're driving to the block, right around this point, it was like a building they called Chocolate City, where it was like after hours, whatever. And the guys in my neighborhood, my family, so that's where they hung out and stuff like that. So that was like a point. From that point forth was where the transactions happen going towards 8th Avenue. So it might be 5, 6, 7 cars moving slowly, and a guy will come and run and jump on the hood of the car.
It's like a little kid,
serve,
right?
and serve right there. The driver's driving, he stop and give me 5, give me 10, or give me 2 quarters, or whatever, and give him the money and do the transaction. He jump off and run to the next car behind that, jump off. And I'm watching this from the window at 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's super fascinating.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And at some point during the day, I'll be outside and I'll be interacting, because this heroin business starts 7 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. So 7 o'clock in the morning, Zoom, cancel, boom, out. Let them know, that was my family stamp, so you let them know that it's out here. And
your family stamp was what?
Zoom, cancer, boom.
Zoom, cancer, boom. That's fly.
It was a heavy package.
So did you guys change up names depending on the different quality of the package, or was that just your legacy
Zoom, cancer,
stamp?
boom. Your stamp was very important.
Right.
Your name was very important. Prior to stamps, it was bag color. Prior to bag color. It was the color of the tape on your bag. Right. And so those things were very important. They were brands, like that infamous scene in American Gangster where it says, Blue Magic is a brand.
Right.
And I stand behind that, whatever. That was serious. And
like
Blue
Pepsi.
Magic was real.
What were the other stamps in your neighborhood? I assume a couple stamps each block could be possible.
You had Poison, that Poison to put out, which was the only thing that was reputed to go head to head with Blue Magic when Blue Magic was pumping. You had West Indian Chuck with Please, 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 which, I'm a little kid moving around, riding around the neighborhood on my Apollo 5 speed or whatever have you. And, this is what I'm hearing. All I hear is shout outs all day long. All right. Please, please, please stands out, stood on my head. But it was a bomb package.
Yeah.
It was a bomb package. Poison, Blue Magic, the West Brothers down between Manhattan Avenue and 8th Avenue. They had strong package. I can't remember the name of their stamp. I can think of the names of the people who had the standing that you knew their thing must be the thing because their name is on a lot of people's lips.
Yeah. Right.
So, Cisco Kid. I remember riding, but it was a furniture store on the corner of 116th and 8th Avenue called J Horn. And huge 4-story furniture store. And most of the people in the neighborhood got their furniture from J Horn. Just past J Horn, because J Horn was on the corner, and it was a huge building, so maybe like a quarter way in to the block off of the avenue, I remember seeing Cisco Kid out there. Cisco Kid is my man Reggie's dad. So I remember him being out there with a large bag, like the kind of bags used to be in the supermarket back then, which were large brown paper bags. No insignias and like this, a large brown paper bag. And out there, and like it's full of quarters, and people would be lined up. And
full of quarters of heroin.
Yes. And he'd be selling it. And he riding by. It's a line of people buying drugs. All kinds of conditions and so forth. And that was just him.
Yeah.
And he got rich.
Yeah.
He was a kid.
So there's just hundreds of millions of dollars
it's a fact.
a year coming through this black slum.
Triangle. That's right. 110th to 119th to Morningside to Lenox. Like that whole space.
Heroin addicts everywhere. And are there like...
When I was born, there were approximately 250,000 heroin addicts in America. According to statistics, 80% of them were in and around my neighborhood.
Wow. Now, why is that, you think?
Because that's where the best dope was. So people would move there from other places, move there from other parts of the country.
Once you came to Harlem.
That's right.
Just so
you can be in proximity to the best dope, rather than waiting in Virginia for somebody to get it there. And by the time it's gotten there, they've done the
the 2-step.
They've done the 10-step. Whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think people do that now in San Francisco. They move from all over the country because they can smoke fentanyl and crystal on the Tenderloin in the streets, and they can do it unbothered.
Yep.
That's
My wife was just there a few months ago, and I'd warned her, but when she got this, she was like, "I've never seen it like this in my life."
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Harlem.
I was in Portland.
That's where I'm from.
A little while last year. It's crazy.
Is it?
Crazy, bro. It's crazy. It's just using drugs everywhere. Nobody gets arrested for drugs at all.
Well, it didn't seem like people did back then either.
No, they didn't. They didn't. But see, that wasn't surprising to us because, this is black people.
Right.
This is a bunch of black people.
Okay, so it was black people getting high. Those are the fiends coming through. You didn't see
for the most
white.
part. Not
didn't
much.
See white people coming through.
Not much.
Okay.
Not much. Because a lot of people, a lot of people were on heroin. You know what I'm saying? I had several members of my immediate family on heroin. My sister, first cousin, several. Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about your family. So Wow, your family, man. I mean, these are gangsters. These are people probably suffered a lot of generational trauma from,
No doubt about it.
you know, but these were like old school mean black people.
Oh, yes.
And
Jim
I say
Crow.
all of this with love, but yes,
So no doubt. That's true.
but you're right. But this fury and this hardness has to come from the Jim Crow era, and now they're in, you know, the mecca of black people, the capital of American black people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just super deep in the heroin game. They're one of these crews. Your uncle was Butch Cassidy, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your mother. God, we love her. I feel like I know her after reading the book. Tell us about your mother and your uncles and your cousins and where they operated. What level of the game were they at in this whole universe of heroin in Harlem?
Well, there's a hierarchy within the game, and then there's a hierarchy within the crews that are in the game, right? There was 2 generations before me in my family. So you had my sister and all my first cousins' generation that were 14, 15 years older than me. Then you had the generation before them, which is my mother, my father, my uncles, who my cousins and my sister and all of them that came before me were brought in by. Right. So when I was born.
I'm sorry to cut you off. So your family, your parents' generation goes back to when heroin was first on the scene in the 50s.
Yeah.
When they called it horse.
Yeah.
They go back to the horse generation.
Where you could get,
wow.
where you can buy a $2 bag of dope and be high for 8-10 hours.
Wow. So they go back.
You and your buddy.
Now, did they? Did your mother ever talk to you about how she got started? Like, was she at?
No.
Okay.
It was just a reality.
Much.
It was just a reality. But
Right.
you know, in the process of writing "Raised by Wolves," in the process of the diary, the journal that Raised by Wolves evolved into, because I had no intention of going against the grainage of my training to write a book about the life that we lived. That was absolutely the opposite direction of what I was taught. Yeah. Right. I realized in that process that I didn't really know about my mother, my father. I only knew what I actually gleaned from my direct interaction with them. Yeah. They were very, very closed-mouthed about everything.
Old school.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, which is why to this day I still, you know, I spend a lot of time trying to pry information out of those who are left.
Right. Yeah.
Still, not active at all, although you never really know with the older generation. Right. You never really know, but they're not active at all. I was just talking to one of my aunts a couple of days ago when we were up there in the city. I introduced Al to her. Shout out to Aunt Deidre. And I'm like, you know, I asked her, or Al asked her something, whatever. She's like,
yeah, right.
I'm like, it's been 40 years.
Yeah.
Like,
well, old school people.
The statute of limitations is far past. Like, you could talk about it.
Old school people, especially old school gangsters or criminals, they never talked about the past.
That's right. That's what I was raised on. That's why Raised by Wolves was so cathartic.
So let's just talk
about mom. I didn't know about my mom for real, other than what I saw myself. And even after she passed, and I started working on this thing and started calling the book, and I started reaching out to different members of my family who were still around and who were around and under her, and they were still like, I'm like, bro, she is not going to reach out from the ground and snatch you up, you know. But the indoctrination was so deep that they still. It's like I want to talk, but every time I try to say things that I know I shouldn't say, my voice gets stuck in my throat.
Wow,
that's how I remember being that way.
Yeah,
I remember being that way.
Yeah.
You know, that whole process of writing what became that book was really deep, cathartic therapy for me. You know, that's why it's inside the life and mind of a guerrilla hustler, not just the life, not just this is the stuff I did and saw, and this is how I felt about and what I thought about the things that I'd done and experienced and witnessed. You know what I mean?
Because when you're raised in an environment like that, you have somebody like you with this sharp mind, you have nobody to talk to about it.
Nope.
You got to tell somebody, dude, guess what I saw today? But you have nobody because that's just normal. You just do. You don't. talk about it, nor do you really think.
That's right. That's
so,
right.
okay,
if
well, we'll just talk about...
People start looking at you, you know, within your own system. They start looking at you like what's wrong with you? Like,
right.
You know, this is your business, not show business. That's it. That's all. And it could be the person's right, like your best friend. I couldn't tell my best friend. I couldn't come out the house and tell my best friend, yo, they got like $1 million on the bed upstairs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I can't say, I got to go outside and act like everything's normal.
Right. Now, did you have normal friends from the neighborhood whose parents worked and went to church?
Absolutely. Most people, and this is something that I speak to all the time still to this day, most people in the hood did not sell drugs, did not participate in the drug life. So, and I've did a couple of posts about this on IG, like, there was a time when people in the neighborhood did not speak at all like people in the street. Didn't use our colloquialisms, didn't use our slangs, didn't use our vernacular at all. At all. They spoke like regular people while we were like, look, you know what I'm saying, go around the corner and see the man, hit the man with the thing, you know what I'm saying, and, you know what I'm saying, holler back and, you know, let's, you know, get with the other situation, you know what I'm talking about? Like, that was it. Yeah. So if you didn't know, you don't have no idea what was just said, and you can have a conversation right in front of you. Then at some point around the time that, you know, rap is starting to pervade, you know, everything, then you start hearing regular moms, dads, working class, church people, never been outside after the street lights came on. People start talking about, you know, yeah, man, you know what I'm saying, I'm a hustler, got to get to the bag. And it's like, what? Aren't you going to work?
Right.
Yeah. You know, but it's like they started picking up on our stuff. And after a while, it became like the generation that came behind that generation just talk like that because they figure I'm from the hood and this is how we talk in the hood. No, I had a lot of regular friends, like everybody who wasn't in the thing, wasn't in the thing. Right. And there was no confusion about it.
How many people did you know, like you, these little kids, these little princes that whose family were big time dope dealers?
For me,
it
was just my family, my cousins. You know, it was just us. There were a couple of other kids, but they were few and far between. A couple other kids, like, you know, from like one kid from 14th Street, and I mean, for the most part, man, most of the people who did get involved back then, they had mostly gotten involved on the non-business side of the bag. So if there was a person, I had a lot more friends who were impacted by the game from the perspective of their primary caregivers being addicted than participants in the money part of it.
So it was more normal to be an addict from Harlem than a big-time drug dealer.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So
you can't tell by the way these guys recall it, but I was actually there. They weren't there. They weren't outside if they were there.
You know what is so fascinating? Please talk about this. The dichotomy, the symbiotic relationship between the heroin dealer and the heroin user. Like, you admonished your own son when he wanted to dip his toes in the game. And he cursed out a dope fiend, right? Like, the dope fiend was, you know, scratching and maybe, you know, got a little rushed him or something. And he said, "You dirty dope fiend, motherfucker, I hate you." And you smacked him. You said, that.
In Baltimore.
He is feeding you. He's putting money. He's putting
you know
food
those
in your
nice
mouth.
little things you got? That's where it came from.
So there is a real respect, at least back then it seemed like, in the 70s, the heroin generation, there was a real respect paid to dope fiends. Am I correct?
That's a fact. The thing is, during that time, right, when I was born, the majority of the people who were getting money at that point had just been heroin addicts. They had just been dope fiends. So anybody that they were serving was somebody they came up with who just didn't get away from it. Right. They just didn't get away from the bag, from pumping. They just didn't get away from it. So they knew each other.
Yeah.
They went to, grade school together, high school together. They knew each other.
Yeah.
So that's first generation. They couldn't act like that because it's like, I had to walk you back to life just a year ago before you got clean. I had to walk you back to life. Right. You OD'd in the bathtub. Right. You feel me?
Right. And they know how hard it is to get off heroin.
Yes.
So they don't look down on this person. Nope. They're like, he is sick and he's got the gorilla on his back,
Nope.
and maybe he'll get off of it, maybe not, but it's a person.
Right.
And he's putting money in your pocket.
That's right.
So is treating the customers like when you opened up shop, you ran a lot of different shops from smack to crack and then back.
Yeah.
There was always a sense of like treating the junkies and the dope fiends well.
I was told specifically and directly. My mother told me specifically, for one, she's raising several heroin addicts, for one.
Right.
For two, she grows up, in this environment. She knows what it is, right? Harlem was a village, you know what I'm saying? So we were all connected, we weren't separated by more than 6 degrees, pretty much nobody. Nobody,
Yeah.
right? Which kept a lot of down too, because it's like you had a problem with somebody. It's like, you do something to this person, some kind of way it's going to come back around and be like, you're going to be harmed by it. Like, oh, that was my mother's best friend's son.
Yeah.
Or something like that, right? So people were less likely to go to some extreme, for one, back then.
So there was less violence during this
Yes.
heroin getting era.
Absolutely, because money was the priority.
Right. And there was
And
so
if you
much of it.
interfered with that, then it was either send your ass down south, or they're going to find you somewhere with a hot shot or with a bullet in the back of your head somewhere.
It's like targeted.
That's right. The money is more important. Like my mother used to tell me, the thing is the man. You will never be the man. The thing is the man. And you'll serve that and maintain that for those who might follow you as it was maintained by those who came before you.
Wow.
That was the understanding. So that helped me. I didn't realize it at the time, which is what a lot of Raised About was about the realizations of what the impact of things I'd seen and told and taught and experienced at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, how those things manifested in my life and behavior and personality and condition and everything later on, when I didn't even really directly remember them.
Yeah.
And so she told me, like, these people are people. She said, if you out there and you're selling your package, whatever, and somebody comes up to you and says, yeah, man, I'm really sick, I'm not feeling well at all, saying, and they need a bag, whatever, you give them that damn bag.
Wow.
You don't even hesitate.
Yeah.
It's like if you see somebody hungry, somebody tell you, I'm hungry, whatever, you get them something to eat.
Yeah.
Without even, that's it. That's all, period. That's what you do. So that's how I was raised. And that's the difference, by the way, between growing up in a neighborhood where these kinds of things are happening and then thinking, you can participate and be effective, and then growing up in the actual collectives in which these things are happening, and you're getting the rules, the regulations, the guidelines, the understandings that are necessary for you to be effective out there and not be detrimental to yourself or detrimental to the thing itself, which is what happened. People who were uninitiated, people who had not been verified by somebody who was qualified in order to be certified. Those kinds of people came in and applied what would be square mindset, square ideology, and so forth to the game from the perspective. And of course, if they were staying true to squaredom, then they would really be taken advantage of. So what they did was their version of what it looked like through a square's uninitiated eyes, right? So a square would only be able to see the most austere aspects, the clothes and the cars and the jewelry and the behavior and the mannerisms, but they wouldn't understand any of the catalysts for those things.
And the sacrifices.
The way that people dressed and walked and talked, not everybody walked, talked, dressed the same way.
Yeah.
Regardless of their access, because there were certain things that were reserved for certain people at certain levels.
Right.
You didn't do that because you ain't that person. You can't be doing what they do. Even if you can save up enough money to get what they got and do, you don't do that because you're not that person. Now, when this generation of people in my era came along and started to say, well, I'm getting away from the mores and ethics of my mom and dad, who were, like working class people, whatever, and church going people, that kind of thing, law abiding people, stuff like that. And I'm gonna get into this thing because aesthetically it's so attractive, and that lifestyle is so attractive. And I'm from around here, and it's been happening around here all my life. So I kind of feel like I'm a part of it anyway, you know, by the sheer accidents of my geography. So, yeah, I'm gonna get in the game, and without those insights, without an awareness of the subtle nuances, they destroyed the fabric, the thing that made it profitable, the thing that made it useful, you know, in terms of building wealth and creating opportunity and so forth, such as it were. They destroyed that because they became, you know, their numbers got greater and greater and greater because of, you know, cocaine and cheapness and access and so forth. Heroin didn't have that.